largest street protest in Malaysia for almost a decade, a march of thousands of political and civil activists attempting to deliver a petition to the king, asking for reform of the electoral system. They were greeted by water cannons and tear gas and told to disperse because they'd been denied a permit. I'm Taimur Nabili, and on this edition of 101 East we ask, in the run-up to a general election, is the political opposition in Malaysia being stifled? Initial police estimates spoke of 4,000 marchers. Organisers said at least 40,000. Government said police tactics were reasonable and non-violent. Organisers argued excessive force was used. And the local press hardly mentioned the event at all, while AlJazeera was criticised for being unfair. Our correspondent, Hamish MacDonald, was there.
It was the biggest protest in Malaysia in a decade. Tear gas and liquid chemicals were used to subdue the crowd. But according to most of Malaysia's domestic media, barely anything happened at all. It was Saturday the 10th of November. Police had been taking up positions all morning around Merdeka Square, the site where Malaysia's independence was declared half a century ago. Up to 40,000 protesters were expected to gather, demanding electoral reforms. The rally was organised by dozens of non-governmental organisations and backed by opposition groups from the parliament, among them the People's Justice Party, spearheaded by the former Deputy Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim.
And I think it is a good signal that Malaysians want freedom and democracy and want free and fair elections. And clearly Prime Minister Abdullah Badawi and the cabinet are complicit to this crime of cheating Malaysians from having fair and free elections.
But many of those joining the rally were not Anwar's supporters. Indeed, some even thought he had hijacked the reform issue. Thousands waited at the National Mosque, and few could get anywhere near Merdeka Square because of the heavy police presence. Public gatherings of more than 5 people require a permit in Malaysia, and this protest had been declared illegal. The authorities said it would create traffic hassles and jeopardise public security. By 2 p.m, as people gathered around Masjid Jamek, one of Malaysia's most historic mosques, a confrontation with police quickly developed. Police trucks tried to scatter the crowd, but that failed, and they quickly turned to water cannons, spraying a painful chemical liquid. The police have just sprayed chemicals on the entire crowd. This was, until a few moments ago, an entirely peaceful protest, but they've just come along and sprayed chemicals into the faces of hundreds and hundreds of protesters. Many ran into the mosque seeking refuge and screaming slogans. Few were deterred, and the crowd emerged once again to take on the police and the chemical sprays. Under the rail tracks, a water pipe had burst, and dozens washed the chemicals from their skin.
Do you think the people are afraid of the authorities?
They are not afraid. That I can assure you.
But the police had another weapon. Tear gas was fired this time, sending the crowd running. Most fled eventually. The sting of the chemicals was too much for many to bear. While the rally continued, the information minister came on AlJazeera and denied the crackdown was happening.
You come here, you want to project us like undemocratic country. This is a democratic country.
So why can't people protest then if it's a democratic country?
When they protest, we are allowing protest, and they have demonstrated, but we just trying to disperse them.
Elsewhere, the rally remained peaceful, and thousands marched on the Sultan's palace. It was there a petition was handed over demanding Malaysia's democratic systems be cleaned up ahead of elections. which could be held as early as next year. Malaysia presents itself as a modern democracy, but those values are being put to the test by this new spirit of public action.
Joining me in the studio to talk about the events of Saturday the 10th, Khairy Jamaluddin, who's the Deputy UMNO Youth Leader and the son-in-law of the present Malaysian Prime Minister. Also, the Government Minister Nazri Aziz and human rights lawyer Malik Imtiaz Sarwar. Gentlemen, thank you all for being with us today. Let's begin, if we could, by getting an idea of what happened on that weekend, because there are many different perspectives on what exactly was going on. Minister, let me begin with you.
I was in my constituency, and I was told that the police, from the papers that I read, that the police had a few police blocks outside the city to prevent people from coming in, for obvious reasons. The fear that there might be weapons which may be used by irresponsible people, not necessarily the demonstrators. And I was told there were a group of people specially distributed over so many areas trying to come into Kuala Lumpur.
Okay. Malik Imtiaz Sarwar, what was your interpretation?
All right. As early as Friday night, the police started screening entry into Kuala Lumpur. I've read of roadblocks up north and down south, trying to deter people coming in for the rally. People started moving into KL by about 10, 11 o'clock. I myself was caught in a traffic jam as early as 9 o'clock. So to say that the traffic jams were caused by the rally itself, I don't think is correct. The police roadblocks themselves caused the jams. And then by about 3 o'clock, the event kicked off. There was some commotion in Masjid Jamek area. And I think there was a news crew from AlJazeera that caught some of that. But the media, the official media, have actually spun it as if that was the only event. What actually happened was a group of, some people are putting it as high as 60,000 people assembled outside the King's Palace, which was the objective, to walk to the King's Palace as a show of solidarity amongst civil society and present the memorandum which was done.
Do you think it was handled well, either in a political or a policing way?
Firstly, I think the policing was absolutely well handled by the Royal Malaysian Police in terms of the restraint they showed, in terms of the crowd control, in terms of managing the traffic flows. Imtiaz said just now the traffic was not caused by the people participating in the demonstration, but by the police. But the police were doing the roadblocks, were handling the roadblocks precisely because there was a demonstration. So it always gets back to that.
Imtiaz, let me come back to you. I mean, just to respond to that point that you just made, was it well handled?
Well, I have mixed feelings about this. I think I've heard stories of how some police officers actually assisted marchers as they moved to the Agung's Palace. But then I also have information about what happened in Masjid Jamek. I've also read of some use of force, some say unnecessary use of force in Jalan Maharaja Lela. So my sense of it is it's fairly mixed.
The Government Information Minister has accused AlJazeera of wrongly saying that force was used, and yet in the very next breath he said only water cannon and tear gas were used. Now, where is the line between force and non-force?
Well, you have to disperse the assembly. There are no other means to do so. And the only legitimate means is to use the water cannon and also to use the tear gas. And I know the police has not used any force because for obvious reasons, the world has known that there's going to be a big rally on the 10th, and we were under public scrutiny, not just in Malaysia. AlJazeera, within minutes can distribute whatever information to the whole world. So that's pretty obvious that the police will not use any force because we were under close scrutiny by the whole world.
When 20, 40, 60,000 people descend upon the centre of town, at what point do you decide that the rational way to handle this is to try and get them to go away rather than just say, okay, get on with it, get it over with, and let's move on?
The point is they can't do this because, we have Section 27 of the Police Act, which does not allow for this. And we also have Section 141 under the Penal Code, which also does not allow for this, for obvious reasons, because